This is a Net News Network headline news brought to you by the Behind the Line podcast, bringing you all the crazy, chaotic news from around the United States and the world. Tune in to what you won't hear the MSN talking about. Well, here is precisely why not another dime should be sent of American taxpayers' money to the Ukraine. Several senior Ukrainian officials, including frontline governors, lost their jobs Tuesday in a corruption scandal plaguing President Vladimir Zelensky's government as it grapples with the nearly 11-month-old Russian invasion. Ukraine's biggest government shakeup since the war began came as U.S. officials said Washington was poised to approve supplying Kyiv with M1 Abrams tanks, with international reluctance eroding towards sending tanks to the battlefront against the Russians. Zelensky was elected in 2019 on an anti-establishment, anti-corruption platform in a country long gripped by graft, and the new allegations come as Western allies are channeling billions of dollars to help Kyiv fight against Moscow. Officials in several countries, including the United States, have demanded more accountability for the aid given Ukraine's rampant corruption, while Zelensky and his aides portray the resignations and firings as proof of their efforts to crack down. The wartime scandal could play into Moscow's political attacks on the leadership in Kyiv. This is completely unacceptable. We are giving hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine, and they're not using it like they're supposed to. Not only are we giving them money, but we've given them a lot of military equipment. Now we're going to send over tanks, which is unheard of. This has never been done. This is a ridiculous situation. We have Americans hurting at home with inflation and everything else going on, and you're going to continue to send money to these fools in Ukraine who are just basically stealing the money for themselves instead of using it for war purposes. One of these guys was fired because he was in charge of the food that goes to soldiers, so he wasn't getting them the food they need. Are you kidding me? This all could have been stopped before it was ever started, when Russia was building up on the Ukrainian border for months before the invasion happened. When Biden sat there and told us that he didn't believe Russia would invade, and Russia was saying that it was just a training exercise, but any half-wit could have seen that that was a lie, that they were building up for an invasion. And yet the U.S. stood by and did nothing, even though they had this agreement with Ukraine to protect their borders. That's why Ukraine gave up all their nuclear weapons in the 90s. Now, because Biden and his half-baked administration took no steps before it started, because they wanted it to start, we're forking over money we don't have to spend on a war we don't need to be involved in. It makes you wonder if the Ukrainian official that died in a helicopter accident was actually an accident, doesn't it? So along with us sending tanks to Ukraine, you've got Germany and Poland that are also going to provide tanks. And you've got Norway saying they'll buy tanks from Germany to donate to Ukraine as well. At some point, Russia is going to lash out at these other countries for providing assistance. It's been a lot of verbal lingo up to this point, but at some point, they're going to take some action against these countries that are providing all this aid to Ukraine. You can bet your bottom dollar that U.S. officials want this war, because war, inevitably, if you win, is good for the economy. And our economy is in the toilet. Not to mention, Russia's involved with all this BRICS trade agreement that's going to take a lot of trade away from the West, where it's traditionally been. You've got Russia pushing for Saudi Arabia to use other currencies instead of the dollar. All these things are targeting the American economy, and these rich politicians aren't going to have it. Not to mention all this aid money being spent to Ukraine. The Ukrainian officials aren't the only ones involved in the corruption of that money. I guarantee you that. There's plenty of American politicians that are probably getting backdoor payments and everything else for all this money being sent over. So, once again, the American taxpayer suffers while politicians and the elite, the select humans, as John Kerry puts it, continue to get rich off our backs. More good news for you vaccinated people. An elevated rate of Bell's palsy was identified among elderly people after vaccination with a Pfizer booster shot, U.S. regulators said in a new study. The small but statistically significant elevation in Bell's palsy was detected after vaccination with Pfizer's old booster, which is no longer available in the United States, researchers with the U.S. Food and Drug Administration said in a preprint study. The elevated rate resulted in an adjusted incidence ratio of 1.13 and remained consistent with when researchers adjusted for different factors such as a prior COVID-19 infection. A rate above 1 shows a possible connection between the vaccine and an adverse event. A statistically significant elevated rate for Bell's palsy after vaccination with the Moderna booster was not detected, although adjustments for certain factors such as seasonality did result in statistically significant results. Bell's palsy is facial paralysis or weakness, typically of one side of the face. Symptoms often improve partially or fully within weeks, but some people suffer long-lasting problems. The cause of the condition is unknown, according to the U.S. National Institutes of Health. Unknown, huh? Both messenger RNA, mRNA vaccines can cause side effects, including a form of heart inflammation called myocarditis, U.S. authorities and other experts have acknowledged. Pfizer and Moderna did not respond to requests for comment. Well, I think they're just going to keep leaking out these little things for a while. Admitting small things that happened until they finally come around and admit just how bad this has been. Hundreds of athletes don't just drop dead for no reason in a year. And those are just the people that are out in the public eye. That's not all the other Americans who have underlying health conditions or are not in the physical condition that athletes are. There are no coincidences, folks. Well, here's a story you don't hear every day. The Earth's core has stopped moving and may be reversing direction, a study says. Surprising finding might solve long-standing mysteries about climate and geological phenomena. The Earth's inner core has recently stopped spinning and may now be reversing its direction of its rotation, according to a surprising new study that probed the deepest reaches of our planet with seismic waves from earthquakes. This is in a report from Vice. The mind-boggling results suggest that Earth's center pauses and reverses direction on a periodic cycle lasting about 60 to 70 years. A discovery that might solve long-standing mysteries about climate and geological phenomena that occur on a similar time frame and that affect life on our planet. Interesting. Of course, it must be noted that this is more or less the plot of the 2003 disaster film, The Core, but there's no need to worry about averting an impending apocalypse by nuking the center of the Earth. While the core's rotation influences Earth's surface environment, scientists think this periodic spin switch is a normal part of its behavior that does not pose risks for life on our planet. Earth's inner core is a solid metal ball that is 75% the size of the moon. It can spin at different speeds and directions compared to our planet because it is nestled within a liquid outer core. But scientists are not sure exactly how fast it spins or whether its speed varies over time. Located some 3,000 miles beneath our feet, the core experiences intense heat on par with the surface of the sun. Because it is so remote and difficult to study, the inner core remains one of the least understood environments on our planet, though it's clear that it plays a role in many processes that make our world habitable to life, such as the generation of Earth's protective magnetic field, which blocks harmful radiation from reaching the surface. Now, Yi Yang and Zidong Song, a pair of researchers at Peking University's Sinoprobe Lab at School of Earth and Space Sciences, have captured surprising observations that indicate the inner core has nearly ceased its rotation in the recent decade and may be experiencing a turning back in a multi-decadal oscillation, with another turning point in the early 1970s, according to a study published on Monday in Nature Geoscience. So the article goes on to say that the core can affect the climate of the Earth. And that this is a periodic cycle, which is interesting because that could explain the periodic cycles the Earth goes through with heating and cooling. And it could explain some of this climate change that Democrats are crying about every day. They go on to say that the same multi-decade cycle has also been observed in the Earth's climate system as global mean temperatures and sea level rises appear to oscillate every 60 to 70 years. So, Al Gore and all you other Democrats crying about sea level rise and all this other stuff, it could very quite possibly be also natural things occurring that we have no control over whatsoever. These green agenda people never want to acknowledge natural processes or the sun or anything else that could possibly affect our climate other than human change, even though going back through history you can see changes in the climate systems of the Earth over and over. This article seems to acknowledge that. The scientific study seems to acknowledge that. Well, we see the back and forth going on between the Democrats and the Republicans about the debt ceiling. Dozens of House Democrats believe it is time to eliminate the debt ceiling and instead allow unlimited borrowing so the government can spend whatever it needs. The federal government is entrenched in another battle over the debt ceiling after Washington hit its borrowing limit of about $31.4 trillion last week. As a result, the Treasury Department has employed extraordinary measures to help cover the government's obligations until June, when these tools will be exhausted. Republicans have called for a debt prioritization plan that includes a reduction in the record growth of federal spending before allowing an increase in the debt ceiling, according to a draft GOP proposal. But a chorus of Democrats argue that it would be better if officials voted to cancel the debt limit and let the government borrow without any limit or restraint established by Congress. What a great idea. Let's just spend, because money doesn't really mean anything to these people at all. I'm sorry, but you've got to have some sort of budget, and we're way over it as it is. Democrats also talked about making a $1 trillion coin to pay off the debt. Yeah, you heard that right. In recent years, left-leaning economists and Democratic lawmakers have floated the idea of minting a $1 trillion platinum coin that would then be deposited in its bank account at the Federal Reserve, enabling politicians to withdraw from the account and fund government spending. During the 2013 debt ceiling crisis, economist Paul Krugman urged the Treasury Department to explore this concept even if it looked silly for a couple of minutes. Nearly a decade later, he championed the proposal again, writing in October 21 that the Biden White House should mint a $1 trillion platinum coin, or declare that the Constitution gives it the right to issue whatever debt is needed to fund the government. Reports have recently surfaced that administration officials and other Democrats have weighed the possibility of the Treasury relying on an obscure law approving the creation of a $1 trillion coin. Yellen has supposedly shot this idea down. Does it get any dumber? Every day there is some other stupid thing that comes out that is going on in this government. Why don't you just give us all $1 trillion coins if it's that easy? Why don't you just deposit $1 trillion in everybody's account and we'll just never have to worry about money again? These people are the select humans, folks. That's what they think. John Kerry said it at Davos. They are the select humans. These are the brightest and smartest running the country. Are you kidding me? Have you heard of the BRICS agreement? I mentioned it earlier in this broadcast, and if you're not familiar with it, you should look it up and make yourself familiar with it, because it's going to change the face of the world economy. This is an agreement between Russia, China, African nations, and now they're trying to get the Middle East involved. This is a trade partnership that about 70+% of the world will be involved in, but not the US or other Western nations. And they won't be trading with dollars. They'll be trading with some other currency. Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, is warning about this situation in a new report. In it, he says South African President Cyril Ramaphosa reportedly said during an interview at the South African Broadcasting Corporation Tuesday that Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud has expressed the kingdom's desire to be part of the BRICS. Ramaphosa recently returned from an official visit to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia's capital city. The BRICS nations are Russia, China, India, Brazil, and South Africa. The president of South Africa was quoted as saying, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman expressed the kingdom's desire to join the BRICS. In 2023, the BRICS summit will be held under the South African presidency, and this request will be studied. Several countries are in contact with the BRICS, and we have assured them that the ascension issue will be discussed and a decision will be made, Ramaphosa explained. If Saudi Arabia joins BRICS, it would be a promotion to the Middle East countries to strengthen their ties with BRICS countries and weaken the intervention and influence of the U.S. in the area. A Beijing-based international relations expert reportedly told Global Times Wednesday. Many others share the sentiment. If Saudi Arabia joins BRICS, it will be another strategic blow to the American empire. BRICS Plus can launch a democratic and commodity-backed global currency to challenge the U.S. dollar. During the BRICS summit in July, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced that the BRICS economies plan to issue a new global reserve currency. Analysts believe the BRICS move to create a reserve currency is an attempt to undermine the U.S. dollar and the International Monetary Fund. Kiyosaki has been predicting the end of the U.S. dollar for quite some time. Earlier this month, he said that the U.S. dollar will crash by January of next year. Last month, he said the end of fake money is here. The renowned author previously explained that when President Richard Nixon removed the U.S. dollar from the gold standard in 1971, the U.S. dollar became fake money. Last week, he warned about World War III. Kiyosaki believes that the Federal Reserve raising interest rates will destroy the U.S. economy. The Rich Dad, Poor Dad author has urged investors to get into crypto before the biggest economic crash in world history happens. Well, this would definitely be bad for the U.S. economy, and I think you can just put two and two together and see why the U.S. is interested in the Ukraine-Russian war. Well, we all see the writing on the wall with the economy, and what are you doing to protect yourself going forward? Silver and gold historically have always held their value. This is a good way to hedge your financial security in the future. You can go to Silver Gold Bull to buy gold, silver, platinum, and other products with over 286,000 five-star reviews. This is where I get my silver from. Silver is the most popular precious metal to invest in, as the cost per ounce is dramatically lower than other metals. Buying silver online is a smarter, more reliable way to diversify your financial portfolio. Additionally, investing in physical silver and gold are the only assets that are completely free of counterparty risk and have historically held their purchasing power. For more information or to purchase your silver or gold, you can visit my website, behindthelinepodcast.com, and follow the link to silvergoldbull.com. Protect your financial future today. Well, in the wake of more documents being found in Biden's house, classified documents, some from when he was a senator, to which he should have had no right to have in his possession, and of course Trump having possession of classified documents, and now Mike Pence having possession of classified documents. Attorney General Merrick Garland was asked if there's a double standard in justice of the way these cases are being handled. And he said Monday that his agency hasn't used a double standard when investigating President Joe Biden's classified case. Former President Donald Trump and some Republicans have said the Department of Justice has treated Biden more leniently than the former commander-in-chief, whose house was raided by FBI agents in August. Those agents found materials with classified markings, the Justice Department has said. We do not have different rules for Democrats or Republicans, different rules for the powerful or powerless, different rules for the rich and for the poor. We apply the facts and the law in each case in a neutral, nonpartisan manner, Garland told reporters during a roundtable on Monday. That is what we always do. Huh. Is that what you see going on? Because that's not what I see going on. Of course, Garland made a bunch of excuses. But here's what I know from being in law enforcement and writing search warrants and executing search warrants. You don't let suspects conduct their own search for evidence. That creates a whole problem if charges are to be filed or anything goes to court. If law enforcement is made aware of evidence, then they go and collect that evidence. They do. Not the suspect, not the suspect's attorneys. They go get it. They collect it, so they do the search, so they know that everything's been found. Because, how many more things are in Biden's house that haven't been found yet because the attorneys didn't do a thorough search? If you want to play that game and believe that's how it really happened. I don't. You know that they know what's there, and they've decided what they're going to give back and what they're not going to give back. When it's going to be released and when it won't be released. The way Trump's situation was handled, people may not have liked that. But that would be the way that law enforcement would or should handle a case where it's known that evidence of a possible crime is at a location. They go get it. That's what should have been done with Biden. His homes should have been raided by the FBI as well. And I guess we're yet to see how Pence gets handled, but again, you don't let suspects and their attorneys do the search for evidence or decide what they're going to hand over or what they might put in the shredder or make disappear. The corruption is just never ending with these clowns. But again, these are the select humans. Well, speaking of corruption, this clown from New York, House Republican George Santos, who was just elected, he is facing a host of questions. He's accused of faking his resume and the circumstances of his mother's death, along with having questionable campaign finances, reporting, and allegations of pilfering from a fundraising campaign for a dying dog, among other things. He has acknowledged embellishing his educational background and job history, but has denied most of the other allegations, even as he was sworn in for his new House post this month. The allegations have sparked multiple demands for his resignation, as well as at least 2 investigations and calls for additional probes. Santos District includes a portion of northern Nassau County, New York, on Long Island, as well as part of Queens, New York, Eastern Borough. Nassau District Attorney Ann Donnelly, a Republican, announced that her office would investigate Santos after he publicly acknowledged having embellished his resume. The numerous fabrications and inconsistencies associated with Congressman-elect Santos are nothing short of stunning. The residents of Nassau County and other parts of the 3rd District must have an honest and accountable representative in Congress, Donnelly said in a statement issued by her office in late December. No one is above the law, and if a crime was committed in this country, we will prosecute it, Donnelly concluded. He's also looking at federal investigations by U.S. Attorney Brian Pierce. The top prosecutor for the Eastern District is focused in on part of Santos' financial dealings, according to reports by the New York Times. A spokesperson for Peace did not respond to a message seeking comment. This guy lied about his college education, his military service, his jobs. He said he worked for Goldman Sachs and Citibank, which he worked for neither. Prior to becoming a politician, he was working for some other financial, quote-unquote, company that was indicated as being involved in a Ponzi scheme and stealing millions of dollars from people. Nothing about this guy is accurate, and he looks just like the picture of a used car salesman, slick, lying-ass politician. Why the Republicans are keeping this guy around is a slap in the face to voters. People already don't trust politicians or the government, and now you've got a guy who has openly admitted to lying and continues to lie and just laughs it off when he's questioned by reporters. What kind of faith does this put in the government? How many more guys like this are there? Why aren't these people required to certify the information that they put down, for their background before they're elected? If you were to get a police job or any other menial state job or government job, you're subjected to a background check. If you lie during that background check, you are fired or not hired. Why has this guy not been fired? He lied. We don't need liars in the government. We don't need lying politicians. We have enough of those. Republicans should be putting as much distance between themselves and him as possible, not putting him on any committees, not giving him anything to do. He should be removed from office. It's just sick the way this is being handled. It is a slap in the face to Americans, whether you're Republican or Democrat. This guy needs to go. He should be charged with a crime and thrown in jail. Here's some more interesting news about vaccines. The HIV vaccine trial has been halted over the shot's inability to prevent infection. Companies have halted an advanced trial of an HIV vaccine because the shot was found to not prevent infection. Results from the Stage 3 trial led to the determination that the vaccine was not effective in preventing HIV infection compared to placebo among study participants. This is the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. The vaccine, dubbed Mosaico, was developed by Janssen, a Johnson & Johnson subsidiary. The study's Data and Safety Monitoring Board, or a group of independent experts that was monitoring the research, made the determination. Wow. So how many people took this thing and then went out and tried it out? I think we've had just about enough of these vaccines, don't you? How long before they admit that these other vaccines are ineffective in preventing you from catching other things? Stop letting them experiment on you with these mad scientific medications and so-called vaccines. Nothing good is going to come of it. Thank you for listening to Net News Network Headline News, brought to you by the Behind the Line podcast. For more, you can listen to us at the BehindTheLinePodcast.com or right here on Net News Network. We can also be found on Facebook, YouTube, Truth Social, Parler, Gab, Twitter, Telegram, Reddit, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, and anywhere else your favorite podcasts are found. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe and share.